shock of discovering that life is not obligated to be fair. They grow up believing that good behavior guarantees good treatment. They assume kindness will always be rewarded, loyalty will always be returned, and effort will always produce immediate results. Then reality arrives, someone disappoints them, an opportunity disappears, a relationship ends, a plan collapses, and suddenly they feel betrayed by life itself. But if you want to become ruthless in the way this world demands, not cruel, not heartless, but mentally uncompromising, you must become ruthless with your illusions. Stop expecting people to behave according to your standards simply because you behave according to them. You may be honest, but that does not mean everyone else will be. You may keep promises, but some people will break theirs. You may celebrate another person's success while someone else quietly hopes you fail. You may give someone another chance while they use that chance to repeat the same behavior. Your job is not to become bitter because of this. Your job is to see it clearly. Clarity is power. When you stop expecting fairness from every person, disappointment loses some of its ability to destroy you. You begin observing behavior instead of making excuses for it. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, you stop asking why they cannot understand your feelings and start recognizing the pattern. If someone continually takes without giving, you stop calling the relationship balanced simply because you wish it were. If an opportunity disappears, you stop spending months asking why you deserved it and begin asking what your next move should be. This does not mean you become suspicious of everyone. That is not strength. Cynicism is simply another form of weakness because it allows past experiences to control future decisions. Becoming ruthless means remaining open to good people while refusing to be blind to bad patterns. You can trust without being naive. You can be kind without being easily manipulated. You can forgive without giving someone unlimited access to you. Consider rejection. Most people experience rejection as a verdict on their identity. Someone says no, and immediately the mind begins creating a story. I am not attractive enough. I am not successful enough. I am not worthy. But rejection does not contain that much information. It tells you that one person, one opportunity, or one situation did not align with you. It can hurt, but pain does not make the conclusion true. The same principle applies to failure. If something does not work, examine it without turning it into a judgment of your entire character. Maybe your preparation was weak. Maybe your strategy was wrong. Maybe your timing was poor. Maybe circumstances were outside your control. Whatever the reason, extract information. A ruthless mind does not waste pain. It studies it. This is also why you must become careful about criticism. Some criticism contains valuable truth. Some criticism is simply another person's insecurity. If someone identifies a weakness you genuinely possess, thank reality for revealing it and work on it. If someone attacks you because your growth makes them uncomfortable, you do not need to absorb their words as truth. Learn to separate useful information from emotional noise. And stop expecting everyone to understand the path you are taking. When you become more disciplined, some people may call you extreme. When you establish boundaries, someone may accuse you of changing. When you stop chasing approval, people who benefited from your need for approval may become uncomfortable. You do not need to return to an old version of yourself simply because someone preferred you that way. The world will test you through uncertainty, disappointment, rejection, failure, and unexpected change. You cannot control the arrival of these experiences, but you can control the meaning you give them. You can allow them to become evidence that life is against you, or you can use them as information that makes you wiser. There's a difference between saying the world is unfair, so nothing matters, and saying the world is unpredictable, so I will prepare myself. The first creates helplessness. The second creates strength. You cannot control whether someone respects you, but you can control the standards you enforce. You cannot control whether an opportunity appears, but you can control whether you are prepared when it does. You cannot control whether someone stays in your life, but you can control whether you abandon yourself trying to keep them. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control your response. That is where your power begins. Become ruthless with the fantasy that everyone will treat you fairly. See reality without hatred, accept disappointment without surrender, and learn from every experience without allowing it to define you. Because once you stop demanding that the world protect you, you can finally begin building the strength required to protect yourself, and that battle begins with the weaknesses inside you. Once you accept that the world will not always protect you, you are forced to confront a harder truth. Sometimes the person most responsible for keeping you weak is yourself, not because you are incapable, but because you have learned to negotiate with the very habits that keep you from becoming stronger. You tell yourself you will start tomorrow. You promise yourself that this is the last time you will tolerate disrespect. You know what needs to be done, yet you continue making excuses because comfort is easier than transformation. This is where you must become ruthless with your own weaknesses. Ruthlessness does not mean hating yourself. It means refusing to keep making agreements with the parts of you that repeatedly sabotage your future. If procrastination is destroying your progress, you cannot keep treating it like a harmless personality trait. If fear repeatedly prevents you from taking necessary action, you cannot continue calling avoidance being careful. If people-pleasing makes you abandon your own boundaries, you cannot keep calling it kindness. You must become brutally honest about the patterns that are making your life smaller. Most people want the results of discipline without experiencing the discomfort of discipline. They want confidence without confronting fear. They want respect without learning to establish boundaries. They want success without giving up the habits that keep them comfortable. They want a stronger future while protecting the weaker version of themselves that created the present. You cannot have both. Every time you choose comfort over what you know you must do, you strengthen the habit of avoidance. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you teach your mind that your own word has no authority. And when you repeatedly ignore your own standards, your confidence begins to disappear. Not because someone else took it from you, but because you stop trusting yourself. Self-trust is built through action. If you tell yourself that you will wake up early and you repeatedly ignore the alarm, the problem is not simply the missed morning. You are teaching yourself that your intentions are negotiable. If you decide to exercise and constantly find excuses, you are reinforcing the belief that discomfort has more authority over you than your goals. If you promise yourself that you will stop chasing people who disrespect you and then return every time they give you the smallest amount of attention, you are teaching yourself that loneliness is more frightening than humiliation. At some point, you have to stop negotiating. You do not need to become perfect. You need to become consistent. You will fail. You will have weak days. You will lose motivation. There will be moments when you fall back into old patterns. Ruthlessness means refusing to turn one failure into an identity. You correct yourself and continue. You do not spend weeks criticizing yourself for making one mistake. You learn from it, adjust, and move forward. Fear is another weakness that must be confronted carefully. Fear is useful when it warns you of genuine danger, but it becomes destructive when it starts making every uncomfortable situation look dangerous. Fear tells you not to speak because you might be judged. It tells you not to begin because you might fail. It tells you not to leave because you might be alone. It tells you to remain familiar because uncertainty feels threatening. If you obey every one of those messages, your world becomes smaller. You must learn to distinguish danger from discomfort. They are not the same thing. Discomfort often appears when you are growing. Fear may appear before an important decision. Nervousness may appear before you take a risk. You do not need to eliminate those feelings before acting. You need to stop giving them automatic authority. The same applies to the need for approval. If your decisions constantly depend on what other people might think, you are allowing invisible opinions to control your life. Someone may criticize your goals. Someone may laugh at your ambition. Someone may not understand why you changed. If your entire direction changes whenever another person disapproves, you do not truly own your life. Become ruthless about your need to be understood by everyone. You should still listen to reasonable criticism. You should remain capable of admitting when you are wrong. But you should not surrender your goals simply because someone else is uncomfortable with them. Your future cannot be designed by committee. Discipline also requires learning to do ordinary things repeatedly. Great strength is rarely created through one dramatic decision. It is created through thousands of small decisions that nobody sees. Going to work when you do not feel inspired, practicing when progress feels slow, saving money when spending would be easier, studying when entertainment is available, walking away from an argument when your ego wants to respond, saying no when saying yes would make someone temporarily happier. These moments may look insignificant, but they build identity. Eventually, you become someone who knows that your emotions can speak without being obeyed. Your impulses can appear without becoming commands. Your fear can exist without determining your direction. Your comfort can tempt you without controlling you. That is the kind of ruthlessness that makes a person difficult to break. The world may still disappoint you. People may still betray you. Circumstances may still change. But if you have developed the discipline to govern yourself, external chaos loses some of its power over you. You no longer need perfect conditions to move forward. Become ruthless with the habits that weaken you, because the strongest person is not the one who controls everyone around him, but the one who has learned to control himself. And once you can govern your own weaknesses, you become ready to decide who deserves access to your time, energy, trust, and life. There comes a point when becoming stronger is no longer about what you can endure, but about what you are willing to stop tolerating. You can build discipline, control your emotions, and become honest about your weaknesses. But if you continue giving unlimited access to people who repeatedly drain you, manipulate you, disrespect you, or disturb your peace, you are still leaving the door open for the world to break you. Strength requires boundaries. And boundaries require the courage to decide that not everyone deserves the same access to your life. Most people confuse kindness with unlimited availability. They believe that being a good person means always answering, always helping, always forgiving, always explaining, and always giving another chance. But there is a difference between generosity and self-abandonment. You can care about people without allowing them to consume you. You can forgive someone without inviting the same behavior back into your life. You can understand someone's struggles without accepting their repeated disrespect. This is where ruthlessness becomes necessary. You must become ruthless about who receives your attention. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess, because wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. If you spend hours arguing with someone who only wants to provoke you, you have given them control over your mind. If you constantly monitor someone who makes you anxious, you've allowed their behavior to occupy your thoughts. If you repeatedly explain your boundaries to someone who has already understood them and simply chooses to ignore them, you are wasting energy trying to convince someone who benefits from your weakness. Sometimes the strongest response is not another explanation. It is distance. A boundary is not a threat. It is a decision about your own behavior. You do not need to tell someone, "You better respect me." You can simply decide what you will do when disrespect appears. If someone repeatedly speaks to you in a way you will not accept, you can end the conversation. If someone continually takes advantage of your generosity, you can stop providing what they exploit. If someone repeatedly creates chaos in your life, you can reduce their access to you. The important part is consistency. A boundary that exists only when you are angry is not really a boundary. It is an emotional reaction. A real boundary remains when the emotion disappears. You decide beforehand what behavior you will accept and what behavior will cause you to step back. Then you follow through without unnecessary drama. This is difficult because some people will test you when they realize you are changing. They may become surprised when you stop answering immediately. They may accuse you of becoming cold when you stop tolerating behavior that you previously accepted. They may remind you of everything they have done for you. They may attempt to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Do not confuse guilt with wrongdoing. Sometimes guilt simply means you are doing something unfamiliar. If you have spent years pleasing everyone, saying no may feel selfish even when it is reasonable. If you have always been available, creating distance may feel cruel even when it is necessary. Your emotions may resist the new standard because they are accustomed to the old one. This is why you must learn to observe behavior rather than promises. People can say they respect you while continuing to violate your boundaries. They can apologize repeatedly without changing their behavior. They can promise that things will be different and then return to the same pattern. Listen to words, but measure them against actions. A sincere apology eventually produces different behavior. Without change, an apology can become nothing more than another cycle. At the same time, do not become so defensive that you isolate yourself from everyone. Ruthlessness does not mean shutting the world out. It means becoming selective. There are people who deserve your trust, people who support your growth, people who tell you the truth without trying to control you, and people who respect your boundaries even when they disagree with you. Those relationships should not be destroyed simply because some people have hurt you. The goal is not to trust nobody. The goal is to trust intelligently. You should also stop believing that every relationship must be saved. Some relationships reach their natural end. Some friendships become unhealthy. Some connections belong to an earlier version of your life. Some people may have been important to you once, but no longer fit the direction you are taking. Ending a relationship does not automatically make you disloyal. Sometimes it means you finally recognize that holding on is costing more than letting go. And when you walk away, do not turn the decision into revenge. You do not need to humiliate someone. You do not need to expose them. You do not need to make sure they regret losing access to you. The strongest boundary is often quiet. You simply remove yourself from the situation and continue building your life. Revenge keeps you emotionally connected to the person you claim to have left behind. Peace requires something different. Indifference to their reaction. Your time belongs to you. Your attention belongs to you. Your energy belongs to you. Your trust should be earned. Your presence should not be treated as an unlimited resource. The world becomes far less capable of breaking you when you stop giving every person permission to reach the most vulnerable parts of you. Become ruthless about your access, your boundaries, and your energy, not because you hate people, but because you finally understand that protecting your peace is part of protecting your future. And once you decide who deserves access to you, the next challenge is learning how to remain calm when those people, or the world itself, try to provoke you. The world will eventually test your emotional control. It may come through disrespect, rejection, betrayal, criticism, failure, or the sudden behavior of someone you trusted. You can build boundaries and become selective about who receives access to your life. But if every provocation can control your emotions, you are still vulnerable. A person does not need physical power over you to influence you. Sometimes all they need is the ability to make you angry, afraid, insecure, or desperate enough to act without thinking. This is why emotional control is one of the deepest forms of ruthlessness. You must become ruthless about what you allow your emotions to decide. Emotions are valuable sources of information, but terrible rulers. Anger may tell you that a boundary has been crossed. Fear may warn you that something deserves attention. Disappointment may reveal that your expectations were misplaced. But information is not instruction. Feeling something does not mean you must immediately act on it. This distinction separates reaction from strength. Imagine someone deliberately insults you in front of others. Your first instinct may be to defend yourself immediately, raise your voice, or say something designed to hurt them more deeply. In that moment, they have discovered something important. They can control your behavior simply by pressing the right emotional button. The insult may have lasted 5 seconds, but if you spend the next hour arguing, explaining, and replaying it in your mind, they have taken much more from you than those 5 seconds. The ruthless response is not pretending you were not affected. It is refusing to surrender control because you were affected. Pause. Observe. Then decide that pause is where power lives. You do not have to answer every provocation. Some people deliberately create emotional chaos because they know emotional people are easier to manipulate. They say something offensive, then wait for the reaction. They criticize you because they want attention. They question your worth because they want you to defend yourself. They create conflict because your reaction gives them a sense of control. If you react automatically, you participate in their strategy. If you remain composed, the strategy loses its reward. This does not mean you should tolerate serious disrespect or remain silent in every situation. Emotional control is not weakness. You can confront someone without losing control. You can say calmly and directly, "Do not speak to me that way." You can leave a situation. You can enforce a boundary. You can make a difficult decision. The difference is that your action comes from judgment rather than emotional explosion. Anger becomes useful when it is converted into information. Instead of asking, "How dare they do this to me?" ask, "What does this behavior reveal?" Instead of immediately planning revenge, ask, "What response protects my interests?" Instead of trying to prove that you are not weak, ask, "What action demonstrates that I respect myself?" These questions move you from emotion to strategy. The same principle applies to fear. Fear often becomes stronger when you run from it. You avoid the conversation, postpone the decision, stay in the familiar environment, and tell yourself you are protecting yourself. But every time you obey unnecessary fear, you strengthen the habit of avoidance. You must learn to sit with discomfort without immediately escaping it. Your heart can race while you remain calm. Your hands can shake while you take action. Your mind can imagine failure while you continue moving forward. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear make every decision. You also need emotional control when dealing with success. Praise can become as dangerous as criticism if you allow it to determine your identity. If one compliment makes you believe you are superior and one insult makes you believe you are worthless, you are giving other people too much authority over your self-image. Become internally anchored. Know who you are when nobody is applauding. Know your standards when nobody is watching. Know your direction when nobody understands it. Then praise becomes pleasant rather than necessary, and criticism becomes information rather than destruction. This emotional independence changes your relationships as well. You stop demanding immediate replies. You stop assuming silence means rejection. You stop creating stories based on incomplete information. You stop making permanent decisions during temporary emotional states. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is sleep on a decision. Wait until anger decreases. Wait until fear becomes clearer. Wait until disappointment stops speaking so loudly. Then decide. Many people destroy opportunities because they respond to temporary emotions with permanent actions. They send the message they later regret. They end the relationship in anger. They quit because of one bad day. They attack someone because their ego was wounded. Then, when the emotion disappears, they are left with consequences that remain. Do not give a temporary emotion permanent authority. Your emotional world belongs to you. You can feel deeply without becoming controlled by what you feel. You can be angry without becoming destructive. You can be disappointed without becoming bitter. You can be afraid without becoming paralyzed. You can be hurt without allowing pain to determine your future. That is real ruthlessness, not becoming emotionless, but becoming difficult to manipulate through emotion. When the world discovers that it cannot easily provoke you, pressure you, frighten you, or pull you into unnecessary conflict, something changes. You become harder to control because your decisions come from thought rather than impulse. And when you learn to control your reactions, the next step is to learn how to transform the pain life gives you into strength instead of allowing it to become your identity. Pain is inevitable. At some point, the world will take something from you that you thought you could keep. Someone will disappoint you. Someone you trusted may betray you. A plan you worked for may collapse. You may lose an opportunity, a relationship, a position, or a version of yourself that you believed would last forever. The instinct is to ask why this happened to you. But there is a more powerful question. What will you become because it happened? This is where the difference between being wounded and becoming stronger begins. Pain can destroy you when you make it your identity. You start saying, "People cannot be trusted because I was betrayed. I will never love again because someone hurt me. I cannot succeed because I failed. I cannot take risks because the last risk destroyed me." Slowly, one painful experience becomes a rule for your entire future. You are no longer responding to what happened. You are allowing what happened to define what is possible. Do not give the past that authority. Be ruthless with the meaning you assign to your pain. You cannot always choose what happens to you, but you can choose what you extract from it. If someone betrays you, learn to recognize the signs you ignored. If you fail, examine the weaknesses in your preparation. If someone disrespects you, discover where you failed to establish a boundary. If an opportunity disappears, ask what capability you need to develop before the next one appears. Pain becomes useful when you study it. This does not mean pretending that suffering does not hurt. Strength is not denial. If something breaks your heart, allow yourself to feel it. If you lose someone important, grieve. If you fail at something that mattered deeply, acknowledge the disappointment. You do not become stronger by pretending to be unaffected. You become stronger by refusing to remain permanently controlled by what affected you. There is a difference between experiencing pain and surrendering your identity to pain. Some people spend years telling the same story about what someone did to them. Every conversation returns to the betrayal, the rejection, the humiliation, the unfairness. They believe they are processing the experience, but sometimes they are simply keeping the wound open. The event happened once. They repeat it internally thousands of times. At some point, you must decide that the lesson is more valuable than the resentment. Ask yourself what the experience taught you about people, about yourself, and about reality. Maybe you learned that you trusted too quickly. Maybe you discovered that your boundaries were too weak. Maybe you realized that you ignored warning signs because you desperately wanted something to work. Maybe you learned that you were depending too heavily on another person for your happiness. These discoveries are painful, but they are valuable because now you know, and what you know can protect you. Do not let betrayal make you incapable of trusting anyone. Let it make you more discerning. Do not let rejection make you afraid of connection. Let it teach you that not every connection is meant to last. Do not let failure make you afraid to try again. Let it force you to become better prepared. Do not let criticism destroy your confidence. Let useful criticism reveal where you can improve. This is what it means to turn pain into strength. You take the experience, remove the lesson, and leave the unnecessary suffering behind. There is another kind of pain that must be confronted, the pain of growth. Sometimes becoming stronger requires you to disappoint people who benefited from your weakness. Sometimes you must say no when everyone expects you to say yes. Sometimes you must leave a familiar environment. Sometimes you must work while nobody understands what you are building. Sometimes you must sacrifice comfort today for a future that does not yet exist. That pain is different. It is not destroying you. It is demanding that you evolve. Do not confuse temporary discomfort with evidence that you are making the wrong decision. Growth often feels uncomfortable because the old version of you is losing control. Your habits resist change. Your mind prefers familiarity. Your environment may pull you toward the person you used to be. Stay with the discomfort long enough to discover who you can become. And never become proud of suffering for its own sake. The goal is not to collect pain. The goal is to become wiser because of what you survived. A person who has suffered but learned nothing can become bitter. A person who has suffered and extracted wisdom becomes difficult to manipulate. They recognize patterns faster. They choose people more carefully. They recover from setbacks more intelligently. They stop repeating the same mistakes simply because those mistakes feel familiar. That is the kind of ruthlessness you need, not a heart made of stone, but a mind that refuses to waste suffering. The world may hurt you. It may disappoint you. It may take things you desperately wanted to keep, but it does not get the final word. Your response does. Let pain educate you. Let experience sharpen you. And let every difficult chapter make you more capable of protecting the future you still have time to build. And once you learn to transform pain into strength, the final question becomes,